Jack Osbourne endured 6 of the 7 episodes of Special Forces, World's Toughest Test this season, only to be medically withdrawn due to concerns over his elevated heart rate. Osbourne was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis at age 26 in 2012, so the show's medic was particularly alarmed to learn of the Osbourne star's situation. At one point, the doctor warned that he could keel over and die if there's something underneath going on with him. Below, Osbourne speaks with EW about his time on the grueling reality competition. Jack Osbourne: "It was pretty seamless. I've got 4 kids, so the moment you get home, it's just right back into the routine. So I think that helped. But I was bummed, and I'm still bummed I had to leave the show the way that I left. It wasn't on my terms, so I feel robbed of it. If they would have called me asking, 'You want to do season 3?' I'd be like, yes. This show is one of the most, if not the most physically rigorous reality shows on the air." What made you want to join Special Forces initially? I was a fan of the show when it was out in the UK, so when I heard they were doing an American version, I wanted to do it. I like all this stuff. I love challenges like this. I've done various selection, simulated type endurance events before, so it was just something that I gravitated towards. How did the physical challenges of the series compare to your expectations going into the shoot? As much as I love the show, they do a terrible job actually showing the truly physical stuff. The challenge is more mind games than anything. I think they put a lot of focus on those challenges because they're cinematic and there's explosions and they have drones, so it makes for good TV. But the real tough stuff is the fact that everywhere we went off the base, we had those 15-kilo backpacks on us at all times. You're not allowed to walk anywhere, so you're running, and that takes a toll. And then the amount of abuse that they fire off at us, it never ends. So there's a lot between the challenges that is just soul-crushing, and you don't really get a true sense of it. If you could narrow it down, what would you say was the single most challenging element of the show? The toughest thing for me was the calm before the storm, because you can never truly relax. You're on edge the entire time with 0 distractions. I think as a society we're so used to distracting ourselves, whether it's with TV, phones, computers, magazines, whatever. Just having that distraction to turn off your mind is important, and it just wasn't there. There was a time we'd gotten our asses handed to us, and I went and sat on a box out in front. And I just remember just sitting there just being like, I didn't know how to turn my head off. That's brutal. Of the specific physical challenges that made it into the final cut of the show, which did you have the most trouble with? Oh, I totally sucked on the rope. They cut it out, but I pinched my nut on the rope, and that's why I fell off, because my nut got squeezed between my harness and the rope. And I was like, I jolted, and that's why they cut it out. They were like, you sucked at that. And I was like, yeah, that was just not my vibe. I'm so sorry to hear that. That's horrible. Going into the show, did your doctors express concern about your ability to participate before it started? Not really. The show's doctors were more concerned than I was. I'm pretty healthy considering I'm living with MS, but it doesn't present itself daily for me. I've been, touch wood, going pretty strong and I don't have any issues with it right now. So that wasn't a concern. The heart thing, the reason why I ended up getting medically dropped, was a shock for me. It's funny, one of my best friends is a retired Special Forces medic, and he called me the other day and asked what happened, and I explained that my heart rate just wasn't going down. And he says, oh, you were just potassium deficient. That's common with selection. Literally, all they would have had to do is just give you a bunch of bananas or a potassium supplement, and it would have lowered your heart rate. Why didn't the medical personnel on the show give you those, then? Why couldn't they recognize the potassium deficiency? If I'm putting my producer hat on, the show needs people to drop. The medic on the show, he's a real doctor. He could give us whatever medicine he wanted, but it doesn't make for good TV if we get patched up and go back in the fight. They need people to leave. So it's kind of a kiss of death when you go see the doctor on that show, even if it's something minor. But at the end of the day, whether it was a potassium deficiency or not, they were just erring on the side of caution. My heart rate didn't drop below 90 beats per minute for days. Ultimately, I don't want to die for a TV show, so I'm glad they took that approach, but it was still very frustrating.